All right, so hi everyone. We're here today to present Aina, Security and Peace of Mind in a Discreet SOS Bracelet, and help is 2 seconds away. There we go. So my name is Aina Mortier. I am the founder and CEO of Aina. I'm here today with Elike Ejas, who's the co-founder and CEO of Aina, and Agathe Basser, who's the CMO and CIO. We have a couple of partners, which are non-object, which help focusing on emotional relevance to help their clients around the world positively disrupt. And we also have the WHO, which is an organization under the United Nations to ensure world health around the world in an orderly fashion. And we submitted an application for funds and help on reaching places in need for Aina devices.
So our problem, children and women walk in fear. They feel unsafe. Most kidnappings are known after it has already happened, if not days and weeks later. The problem we found was large number of tracking devices already on market rely on cell phone connection and use of GPS tracking, and very expensive and look very flashy. We brainstormed around finding a way to not use cell phone connection, and Aina seeks to solve this.
Our solution. So Aina looks to make an SOS bracelet that when pressed sends an immediate response and signal through satellites to the closest police stations in a certain perimeter around. The simple and unisex design has a complex mechanism that makes it difficult to come off, and the cheaper material we will be using, carbon fiber, compares to others on the market, which will make it cheaper and more reach a wider audience because of its reasonable selling price.
Our user will hold the button for 2 seconds on the bracelet, where then the GPS tracking chip, coupled with the microprocessor, will get activated. Then send a signal to the satellites and cell phone towers. After that, we will have the pre-recorded message that will be sent to the nearest police station in the preset area. We then will track the victim's position and increase chances of finding victims.
So our business model, first of all, how we will make revenue, it will be by using cheaper materials, the carbon fiber, as previously mentioned, and cheaper electronic components that would allow us to sell our product as a lower price than what's already on the market. And its affordability would attract more consumers, ever since also that is a worldwide issue and there's room for market expansion. It would have strategic partnerships and personalizable options that would have us charging a higher price as well. So our first customer segment are boys and girls aged between 0 and 14 years old. We know that they won't necessarily buy them themselves, but their family or their parents. But they have the values of family and of protection at all costs. They're looking for more safety and they're aware of their environment's dangers. Our second customer segment are women aged between 14 and 55 years old. We know that it may happen for older women, but that age range is most likely to be targeted as well. So they're independent, they might work late, and they enjoy going outside or doing outside alone activities. For that reason, they need safety at all times. So our market opportunity, as we saw it, is that if we end up on the market, we have about 15% of the market share in the US. And if all of them were to buy our product, we'll make about $762 million revenue. Now looking at our top-down analysis, if the full number of potential buyers within the US, so our 2 target segments were to buy a product, which is very unlikely, we'll make about $5.1 billion revenue. If only 15% of the market share within the US were to purchase our product, as I previously mentioned, we'll make about $762 million. But what's expected sales reachable in 3 years that we have right now will be about $17.5 million revenue.
Now looking at our competitors, while there's a significant amount of GPS tracking devices already out there, they all had some sort of issues that weren't fully reliable. Now, the first thing we noticed that most of them, if not all of them, didn't have a direct GPS tracking device. So Aina uses satellites instead of using Bluetooth connection to your phone. So if your phone is taken or out of battery, you wouldn't be able to send your location. Another issue was the police wasn't alerted directly. It was a loved one. So the loved one would have to call the police if you were in a situation where you were kidnapped, wasting crucial seconds that are very important when you're being taken. Most of them were easy to hide, but a big issue was affordability. They were over $50 and sometimes over $100 or even $200 and had a recurring monthly fee. And our last issue we saw was the long-lasting battery The longest we saw was 2 years. So every 2 years, the customer would have to buy it too. Again, when we want affordability. So we would make our battery 10 years.
So our growth strategy, first, how we'll get customers. Well, as I mentioned, with strategic partnerships with safety organizations that might invest in our product, especially in developing countries where there is a lot of that issue, and they would give them out for free or KC free as well. Would also have some kind of marketing within police stations, like flyers or referrals to potential victims or people asking for it. Would also have targeted interventions in schools and companies, but no social media marketing or public places marketing to reduce unsolicited exposure to the potential perpetrators. But since we're not doing this, we want to have some kind of a refer a friend discount for customers, since it's more of a word to mouth kind of marketing. How we'll keep our customers? Well, we have the plan of creating a platform dedicated to a specific unit in the police, so that way our calls or problem will be responded right away and not drowning within everything else. Also, it would give us more reliability, and there is an important customer service such as a 24/7 support services that would give our customers the idea that they would be safe at all time, even if there is a problem with their device. It would give them also a lifetime guarantee. And there is a long-lasting battery, as we previously mentioned, which is quartz battery that will last for about 10 years.
Looking at the evolution of our product, we would like to have regular updates and an interactive website that would allow you to register your information. So when the signal is sent to the police, they'll have your description. A team of engineers ready to adapt our product to new environments if offenders start noticing the bracelet. So we'll be able to innovate and create something new, and create a platform for specifically kidnappings in police stations so they don't go unnoticed, and expand worldwide.
So looking at our financials, we did our break-even point, which would be about 270,742 bracelets that we need to sell to reach our break-even point. So considering this, if we sell about 180,000 bracelets in the first year, wouldn't make any profit. But starting the second year, since we're a little higher above our break-even point, we'll make a little bit of revenue, a little bit of profit, I mean. And in the third year, it would increase significantly, as we would sell about 500,000 bracelets at a selling price of $35 each bracelet.
Overall, Aina is a great idea because there is a significant market starting first in the US, and there's an endless opportunity in the world. Our solution is innovative. The solutions that are already present are lacking, and ours goes above and beyond. There's a large room for expansion, as this is a global prevalent issue, and our service is valuable. Everybody's concerned with their safety, and they'll be willing to pay for that.
We would like to thank everyone, and especially thank our partner Non-Objects for giving us the opportunity of having our first prototype, which Athenaïs has.
Yes.
And so we look forward to working more with Non-Objects and the WHO, and finding ways to be better with Aina and get far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And please keep sharing your slides for now. And the 5-minute Q&A session starts as soon as the first judge starts speaking. It's a time for you, judges.
Great. I have a question here. First of all, thanks so much for the presentation. I think this was done very well. It was very well structured. One question I have was about your business model. Do you have a specific price point in mind? Can you talk a little bit more about how this is priced?
So our business model here. Wait, let me try to screen share again. There we go. So we want to sell our product for about $35, as I mentioned in the financials, because we would, our variable costs are about $16.29 to actually produce each bracelet, but we have a whole bunch of other expenses on top of that we need to consider as well. But as I said, we're trying to make it way more affordable than any other device on the market. We even noticed that there were some that were like very expensive jewelry that were about $300, and that were necessarily, that were relying on your phone or on Bluetooth and many other things. And that's why we also want to have like strategic partnerships that for developing countries, we may be able to lower down that price, especially in countries where they need it the most.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question, but I'll let the other judges ask if they've got anything, and then I can go.
Yeah, I have a question about your market. You mentioned that, in your customer acquisition that, developing countries are a great place to expand into. I think, have you guys done any research in terms of like what market size that might look like if you guys were to expand
Yes.
outside the US?
So we did consider it. We looked at some countries. It was very surprising at first because we looked at the New Zealand where they have a huge amount of kidnappings. We also look at countries with a large amount of rapes, for example, like in the Middle East, even in Europe, it does happen a lot because sometimes the victims, especially if it's a stranger, they don't know where they're going. So that could help for those kind of problems as well. But many of the countries actually have a very high rate of rape and kidnappings. So that's why we looked at it and saw that it was mostly like a prevalent issue worldwide.
Okay, thank you.
Hey guys, wonderful presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, quick question. So how did you guys validate this idea, and how did you differentiate the idea from being just a want instead of a need?
So it could be both. I feel like safety is really important for everyone, and it's been very prevalent everywhere. We came up with that idea because as women and before as just, children, it has been very important for us to be safe. Sometimes you just don't have time to take your phone. And I've lived some kind of an experience like this when I was back in my home country. So it can be very, very stressful and very hard. And I feel like it could be both. It could be a need because there are countries where you actually need to be safe at all time, especially if you need to go back home and you don't necessarily have the option of having a phone with you, especially in developing countries. And it could be a want in more developed countries where you have some other solutions, but they can be very expensive and very unreliable. If anyone from the team wants to add on to that.
Yeah, I can add on to that. I mean, like in high school, I had to take the train to and from school, and I had to walk like 2 to 3 miles to get home. And I played volleyball, which also ended around like 7 or 8 p.m. So I'd be taking the Caltrain, which is like a very like cramped place, and there would be a lot of commuters on the train, and I'd have to walk home in Palo Alto, and it'd still be like really like dark streets, and I'd be walking home, and I would always carry my phone and basically like pretend like I'm on the phone with someone, so then no one would approach me.
I do have other questions, but I think I'm going to leave.
We cannot really hear you, or is it just me?
Yeah, I can't understand.
Yeah, it was very laggy.
Can you hear me?
A little bit.
I said I have other questions, but I'm gonna just I'm gonna cede space to other judges to be able to actually ask questions.
Okay.
Great, thanks, Joe. There's 30 seconds left, so I'll just piggyback on my peers real quick. I find that the market size is not very clearly identified in this case. Great job, by the way. The presentation was great, but it is also a product, but I could also argue that you guys are also selling a service. It seems like there's going to be a lot of high maintenance work down the road in terms of monitoring services and all of that that is not broken down in your financials. So how do you justify the cost of a constant monitoring? Will you be charging something like that? Or will it be a subscription service in that sense? Or are you just selling the product straight out for $35?
I unfortunately the 5 minutes mark is time is up. And thank you for judges for asking questions, and thank you for the performances of Aina team.